What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Outside Perspective. I'm your host, Adam Meredith. It's been a little bit since I've done one of these intros. We've kind of switched the show format up a little bit, have been just jumping right into the conversation. I've been interrupting the conversation with a couple commercials, spots for sponsors in my company. So, doing it a little bit different this time because it's been a little bit since I've dropped an episode. So first, I want to say thank you all for still rocking with the show. If you're still listening, I can't thank you guys enough. You guys are fucking awesome. I know it's been pretty sporadic that the episodes have been dropped, and it's for a reason. And I'll explain that reason, but I just wanted to say thank you. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. It really does mean more to me than you could possibly imagine. So just the fact that you like to listen to these conversations, it blows me away. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We're gonna hop right into the show here in just a second. I'm sitting down with Jeremy Johnson. Jeremy's actually my co-host with Shamrock FC, where we do announcing commentary for MMA fights and kickboxing. So really stoked to sit down with him. I actually had him on probably one of the first 50-ish episodes very early on in the podcast. So if you would like to go back and listen to that, go ahead. It's actually kind of cool to listen to because you can see the growth of the show a little bit. But this was a really fun conversation. Jeremy is he's a very smart and successful businessman. He does MMA commentary, and specifically why we had him on the show today, he just launched, not just, I probably would say within the last maybe 6 months or so, he launched his own whiskey called Uppercut Whiskey. We have a couple of drinks on the show. We talk about it. He really educates me on what whiskey is. I'm not a big drinker, so this was really fun to be educated in this space. He is an expert. So this was a really fun conversation. But before we get to the show, I do want to send a couple quick shout-outs. One to Strange Donuts. They've been rocking with the show for a long time. So if you are in St. Louis, go check them out. They got 4 locations. One is over in Illinois in Edwardsville. The other 3 are in Kirkwood, Creve Coeur, and Maplewood. So you got a few options. At one point, they were voted, very recently actually, this year, they were voted one of the best donut shops in the country. So if you are in St. Louis, go check them out. Phenomenal people. Fantastic donuts. You will be happy that you did. And then my company, Imposed Will. So the reason why, I haven't really been dropping as many episodes is because a lot of my focus has shifted to really building this company, Imposed Will. And we are an athletic wear and apparel brand, really a lifestyle brand surrounded by mindset and mental strength. We have a lot of grappling gear right now, rash guards, shorts, gis. We have t-shirts. We have all the stuff. We're expanding. We're growing all the time. So if you'd like to support there, that's a big help. Go check us out. We are building something that's going to be huge and is changing the world in a real way. So if you'd like to come be a part of it, come check us out at imposedwill.com. I really appreciate it. But that's all I really had. I just wanted to touch base with you guys, let you know that, hey, I love you. I cannot thank you guys enough for tuning in. It really does mean the world to me. And I do apologize for not being as consistent with the show. I know part of the appeal of podcasting is like, you got that consistent show every week or every day or whatever the case may be. Boom, 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 hit it. And while that, in the beginning, I was doing 2 episodes a week and then we were doing 1 episode a week. And, it's just kind of slowing down a little bit, but it's not without a reason. So the show is still gonna be here. The format might change a little bit because if I'm being honest with you guys, it's a bit of a pain in the ass to schedule guests. Get a lot of cancellations. It's a lot of coordination. So we might change up the format a little bit, but we'll see how it goes. Either way, thank you guys for tuning in. I'm gonna quit rambling. Let's get to the conversation. Let's gain some perspective with Jeremy Johnson. Jeremy motherfucking Johnson. All right, let's go, my boy.
All right.
Thank you for doing this. Cheers, sir.
Absolutely.
Oh, this table's kind of bare. I feel like I should have put more on here.
Oh,
I usually have like a salt rock lamp that I take from my son's room that I put here just to have it on there.
You got to have the ambiance, right?
But, hey, we got this nice little bottle of Uppercut whiskey here
That's
in
right.
between 2 glasses of dude, this is a nice little.
That's how it should be. That's how it should be.
You staged that.
I did.
You are a fucking professional in every facet of the word, sir.
I'm just kind of one of those guys who are just. It's got to be right, no matter what. It's always got to be right.
Yes.
So, tell me what you think of this.
Well, I tell you. Okay, so let's walk our listeners through this experience. So I always like to smell it first.
Oh, most definitely.
Oh my goodness, you get that cinnamon. It smells like walnut, like wood. I feel like an earthy,
right?
Woody. Like it makes me feel like fall.
I like that.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
I mean, perfect time of year, right?
Yeah. Oh man, that smells really good. It's a good drink, sir.
Yes, I'm glad that you like that.
That's a good drink, sir.
Yeah, that is that's one of my takes on an old-fashioned.
Man, that's good.
So
that's dangerous.
Oh,
that's what
big
I like.
Big time. Yeah, I was serving this up at my bar this weekend, and people were just going crazy for it. So, yeah, it's an 1.5 ounce Uppercut whiskey, some bourbon aged maple syrup, a little bitters, a little bit of cherry. You know, and it's dangerous.
Dude,
isn't it?
That's real good. Dude.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. They serve this at places?
Oh yeah.
Because you curate drinking menus.
I do.
I think that's it's like one of those things that's in your repertoire that nobody really
we don't talk a lot about what I do with that kind of stuff, but everybody sees the MMA Bourbon Appreciation Society show, and that I make drinks, and I get asked all the time, like, well, where'd you learn how to do this? I'm like, well, I've owned a bar for a long time.
Really?
Oh yeah, I owned a bar back 2012 to 2015, sold that one. I've got an interest in a bar now, so I do that, and I curate for other places. I do whiskey picks where, like, I'll go to, let's say that they want a Maker's Mark for their store. They want a private select, right? So they'll have somebody like me go down and tell me kind of what they want it to taste like, and then I'll make it with the Maker's Mark people. And then next thing you know, that store has their private select that we did.
No shit.
Oh yeah, I do barrel picks and things like that for people too.
So you're deep in this scene.
Oh,
way so prior to even trying to create your own brand.
Oh yeah, I've been a fan of whiskey. I mean, it sounds terrible, but I've been a fan of whiskey since I was 12 years old.
Really?
Everybody goes to the parties and they're drinking, their little things like, whatever. Mine was straight Jim Beam. I loved whiskey. I loved the taste of it. It's bad because it all started, so my mother took me on vacation once when I was 10 years old, and we ended up at the Jack Daniel's distillery.
Now, that's a dry county, right?
It is. But the smell and the ideas and all of the things that went on with it, I'm like, man, I could do that. And then as I got, older, and like I said, I mean, if I went to a high school party, I wanted to literally just sit and sip whiskey. I didn't get drunk. I did, but not like crazy, and I was never like a hardcore slammer of any of it, and I just kind of really got to appreciate it, and then I started tasting other stuff, and when I turned 21, I was kind of done drinking because I'd done it so much, but it was really like, it was always whiskey. I always went back to whiskey. I had a bad experience in college on tequila, so I didn't touch tequila for like 20 years, but it was always whiskey, and I mean, I was just infatuated with the ideas of how it was made and what made things happen. And so, I mean, I've done, like, I went and did classes on it, and I ended up, Craig Nasello on the show actually gives me shit all the time because he's like, well, I'm a certified whiskey steward, which is basically like being a sommelier of whiskey. And so, I can do flavors, and it used to be bad because I would go to bars and they would play Let's Guess the proof on the thing, and I could do it by just taste.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
So a trip to the Jack Daniel's facility when you were 12 years old.
Started it all. Yep.
And just being exposed to that process and the smells and the sights and just the whole experience had you hooked from day one.
Yeah, it's one of those that, how you have those core memories as a kid? Mm-hmm. That's one of my good ones. And so I didn't have a whole lot of good ones growing up. And that was one of my good ones. And it just always kind of kept me going back there and kept me always just into the whiskey thing. And just as I got older, I got really into the ideas behind it, like I said. And then, about 5 years ago, I thought, it'd be really interesting. I bet I could make this. So I had a few pours one night, and had a few too many pours. The next thing you know, I'm on Amazon at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm buying everything that you need to build a still, to build all of the mash bills. I bought grains, I bought the fermenters, like one big order, bought everything. And then, next thing you know, 5 years later, I got a bottle of my own sitting on the table that actually started off in my kitchen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I know smell is it's like one of the strongest like links to memory. What smell links you back to? It's like you smell that, you're like, oh, that's like that speaks whiskey to you.
So there is a part in the fermentation process where after it all has been cooked together, the corn and all the grains sit together in a big thing, and it's just they just added the yeast to it, and it now starts the fermentation process. I can tell that smell from a mile away.
Really?
That, and when you walk into the rick houses where all of the barrels are stored for aging, there is a very, very distinct smell, and I can smell it for a quarter mile away, like whenever I'm going to a distillery in Louisville, or if I'm going to meet my blenders for this type of stuff, I can smell it, and I mean it's instantaneous. It's the happiest place I could be at that time.
Really? Is it like a wood smell, or what is it?
It's woody. It's very like almost baking. So think about the smell of something baking. Now take that or grain and beer being processed.
Okay, you can almost like smell the warmth.
Exactly. And it's so cool. You feel just, I mean, me personally, I'm like, yep, I'm home. This is it. Every time I go to Louisville, and I go to Louisville about every 90 days.
Okay.
And, I can tell when I walk into the distilleries that I like to hang out at, or if I'm going out and talk business with somebody even, I can tell what we're going to get into whenever we get there. So
Louisville's such an interesting place.
Oh, yeah.
I went with it was Tracy Taylor, and it was Brett and my friend Mike Moreau. I can't remember Brett's last name, but either way, those guys, and they do like an annual trip to Louisville to like hit all the spots and see what they can find and whatnot. So I tagged along one time.
Yeah.
It's quite the experience to go on, like the hunt for, rare bottles, or just see what you can find, or try to, because you can only get certain things in that town.
Oh, yeah.
That you can't get anywhere else. And I was so shocked by how many people made the trek from, Indianapolis to St. Louis, just all over. It's a destination for this liquid nectar.
It is. It's everywhere that you go. People are always looking for that one that they call their unicorn bottle. And it's just funny to watch all of these people from all across the country. It may be a bottle of Blanton's, or it may be, some kind of Elijah Craig or a Michner's that they've never seen before where they're at. And these people just, their faces light up, and it's amazing when they get it, and being a guy who has a pretty extensive collection, I get it, because I've chased bottles and things like that. And now, and I've got a lot. I mean, I probably got 150 bottles in my personal collection. Oh, yeah.
What do you think? What do you think the estimated value is of that collection?
A lot. A lot. A lot. Yeah, I mean, because I've got a Pappy Van Winkle 23. I've got the 20-year. I've had a 10. I've had a 12. And I mean, I've had them all.
What's the range on Pappy Van Winkle of like cost?
Now on the secondary market, you're looking between $900 and $4,000 a bottle. Yeah, so the 23 year is about $4,000 a bottle.
Holy
at the
shit!
Oh, yeah.
What makes a good whiskey or bourbon? And there's a difference, right? Whiskey and bourbons.
Yeah. So
first, explain that to me.
Okay, so first and foremost, now it all comes down to how it's made. Okay, so all bourbon is whiskey, but not all whiskey is bourbon. That's the saying that everybody uses.
Okay.
So to be a bourbon, you have to be 51% corn in your mash bill, or your ingredients that come together. So it has to be 51% of it has to be corn grain. And then from there, it has to be aged in a new charred American oak vessel. So a barrel, whatever. But it has to have new charred American oak in it.
Okay.
Okay. And then you get into what the Bottled in Bond Act was, which is what made serious specifications on that it can only be made in America and be called bourbon.
So only bourbon can come from like a certain. Is it So can bourbon come from anywhere in America, or can it only come from like Tennessee?
Anywhere in the United States.
Okay.
Yeah, bourbon can be anywhere in the United States. And then there's differences that go. Then you said Tennessee, so there's differences that go to Tennessee whiskey because there's an extra process added that we have arguments all the time. Is Jack Daniel's bourbon? No, Jack Daniel's is not bourbon.
It's not?
Jack Daniel's is Tennessee whiskey.
Oh, see, I thought Jack Daniel's was bourbon.
Not in the least.
Why is
not
it not
even
bourbon?
close? Because it uses a process called the Lincoln County method, which is after it's been distilled and the white distillate comes off the still, it runs through charcoal. And that they actually burn on site there at Jack Daniel's. And it runs through to the bottom, and it takes out a lot of what they call the congeals, which is some of the impurities in it.
Okay.
And with those, it produces a sweeter flavor as it ages. But because of that process, it is no longer bourbon. It's Tennessee whiskey.
Oh, okay.
No matter who's watching this and disagrees with me, that's true. So...
So they're taking creative liberties with their marketing and wording.
They've always Jack Daniel was one of those kind of guys who didn't want to be called bourbon anyway. He wanted a separated product. He wanted to be Tennessee whiskey. He wanted to be the best Tennessee whiskey. So, yeah, he was all about not being called bourbon.
Really?
So, oh yeah.
Oh wow, I didn't
And
know
actually,
that.
he was the one who basically got the designation of Tennessee whiskey to be a non-bourbon.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Is cognac whiskey?
Mm-mm.
What is cognac?
Cognac is distilled wine.
Really?
Oh yeah.
What?
So you take wine and you distill it, and that's what makes cognac, and then they age it.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Shit, didn't know that.
So yeah, cognac, brandies, things like that. Yeah.
Those are just aged wine?
Aged. Well, they have to be redistilled. So after they make the wine, they'll take that and then they'll run it through a still. So it will heat up, it will vaporize, go through, cool, and then come down. And then the liquid that comes out, that condensation, is basically your brandies, and so that's
Oh wow. Okay. So that's kind of like how champagne is you can only, or actually not that isn't, but how you said bourbon can only come from America. Kind of like how champagne is only from
the Champagne region of France. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
that makes sense.
Scotch can only come from Scotland. You can't make American Scotch. You can't make American Irish whiskey. And there's distinct processes to all of it. So
oh wow.
Yeah.
Could you make something and say it is though?
I mean, I have made what would be Irish whiskey if it were made in Ireland. I made it in my house as, kind of a test bed. But, I couldn't call it that. I could call it American whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
I could call it just straight whiskey. But, I could not call it Irish.
Because it doesn't come from the place.
Because it does not come from the place.
Now, does the region actually affect the taste because of I don't know, maybe the altitude or the water or
the water is the biggest thing that matters, and that's why Jack Daniel's is built on an aquifer out there. Louisville has this ultimate limestone shelf that makes the water perfect. I actually have a business idea around that may happen at some point in time. So, but yeah, you actually have to have a very good water source, and if you don't, even when I make it at home, I don't make it with just tap water. I get a specific spring water that I use to use. So
you shouldn't make anything with tap water.
No, you shouldn't drink tap water. Let's be honest.
At all.
Yeah, completely.
I know. I'm always baffled by the amount of additives there in tap water.
Oh.
It's what the fuck are we doing, guys?
Dude, it's terrifying, but it doesn't make good whiskey. It actually gives it a real weird aftertaste.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some sort of chemical or impurative.
Oh, completely.
Impurative. Is that even a word?
Yeah.
Impurity that's in there that will affect the final product.
Yeah.
So what's your process? What was the process like to make this, dude? Because I'm sure it was a long one, right?
Well, I mean, it took almost 4 years to get what's in the bottle.
That's a long time.
It was. And it was a lot of trial and error. I mean, I bet I made 60, 70, 80 batches that just, either end up given away, thrown down the drain. I mean, there was some of it was bad.
Really?
I mean, it was bad. And I tried a bunch of different flavor profiles. There were going to be 3 originally that were going to come out. It was going to be this one, a banana, and then an apple. And the banana and the apple, we got hung up with the FDA because it's real. So none of it that I use in this. So everybody has always said, well, you made cinnamon whiskey, so you made Fireball. I'm like, no, I didn't make Fireball because there's no sugar added. There's real cinnamon in it. There's real walnut in it. There's no extract.
So there is walnut in this.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Did I say walnut when I tasted it?
I mean, you did. See, cinnamon walnut right there.
I didn't read that.
Exactly.
I was just smelling.
That was good. See, you got it, though. That's a trained nose, man. That's
Shit,
a trained
bro.
nose. So, no, but, it was one of those that I wanted to do something that non-flavored whiskey drinkers would be like, okay, I can deal with this because it's good. It's 90 proof, which is really high for anything that has a flavor to it. Most of them are like 40.
Yeah.
To the point that Fireball isn't even really considered a whiskey; it's a liqueur.
Yeah,
So,
that's super
and it's
sweet.
terrible.
Yeah, this isn't sweet. These
No.
are subtle notes.
Right.
There's a difference.
Yeah, you're
It's
still getting a
smooth.
lot of vanilla. You're still getting a lot of that, caramely that you see to it. It just happens to have a cinnamon nose to it pretty good, and then a little bit of, nuttiness in the back end of it. So, yeah, but it took a long, long time. And then once I finally got what I was happy with, I was lucky enough that I had friends who were in the spirits industry. I have a friend who owns a distributorship. I had a bunch of friends who were like big time bartenders in St. Louis. So like we took this to every big bar that I knew somebody at, and I'm like, here, tell me what you think and be honest. And we changed some things from it, but I mean, like I went to guys who were, at the big ones like Clark and Bourbon, Olive and Oak, and all around St. Louis that are, these high end mixing guys, and they really took to it, and so that was why really we were able to jump into the places that we are now, because I had done so much footwork with those guys, and they got to see it from the beginning and then to this, and so yeah, it was very cool. But we took it. It's kind of funny because I never thought the flavor would work like at all. I thought that's a terrible idea. It was actually it was my girl's idea on the cinnamon walnut part.
Really?
I'm like, no, this is gonna be bad.
Dude, the cinnamon apple sounds amazing. But you said that so that because you're using
Because
real
real
apples.
yeah. And because the real apples aren't. It's not the process that it took to get the flavor to it. Was more like an infusion and not like a distillation process.
Okay.
So like it actually sat, like the whiskey, the distillate that I made sat in a barrel with apples in it or with bananas in it. And so because you're using real fruit, there's like a shelf life things and all this other testing we had to go through. The banana may still come out.
Really?
Yeah. They the company that we work with, Next Century Spirits, that does our distillations for us, because I couldn't make this in my kitchen and get it the scale it's been. We're in 60, 80 stores now in Missouri, from Joplin to Kansas City.
You've grown a lot
in a very short time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long has this been on the market now? Like, has it been a year?
No, we hit the market on January 30th.
Yeah. So I mean, shit, it's September now, right? So 9 months.
Yeah, it was crazy because I had them make enough that I thought would last me about a year.
I guess 8 months.
Yeah, and so I had them make enough that I thought would last a year, and then within 2 months we were like almost sold out, and I was lost. I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't. Nobody told me this was how it was supposed to go. We were looking at the idea of, all right, so I got to reorder, I got to get more made, and so then it became, we're on our fourth set of distillation on it. So.
Oh really?
Oh yeah.
What's the time frame on the process from start to finish until you can get this in a bottle?
It's a good, at the moment, about 4 months.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so if you run out of all product, you gotta wait.
You have to wait. Completely. Yeah. So you don't want to ever run out, because we've made it onto menus of bars, and so you always want to make sure that they've got what they need. We've gotten, I'm getting pictures now from, as far away as Oklahoma, of people who have like 6 and 7 bottles that are empty. The St. Louis MMA community, though, has been like amazing to me. We've been around the world with MMA here in St. Louis forever, but they took off with it, and it just floored me. There are guys out there who send me pictures that, oh yeah, I'm on my 6th bottle, I love the stuff, and I mean, I'm amazed, because I would have never thought that it would have taken off like it has, and so it's been really cool, because it's pushed me for like, what do I want to do next?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, dude, it's good whiskey, man. It's really good. And now that I'm at the bottom of this drink right now, I'm just like, shit, dude. This is dangerous, dude.
Oh, it is.
This is dangerous. I might fuck around and get drunk tonight.
There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all.
I don't do it often. Man, this is good, dude.
Well, good. I'm glad you like it.
Wow, that's really good. What makes a good whiskey?
In my opinion, a good whiskey takes age. It takes time. You can take a mediocre whiskey, and if it sits in a barrel for a long time, it completely changes things.
Really?
Oh yeah. There are times where you can take something at, 2 years, and then taste it at 4 years, and it becomes a completely different product.
What's going on in the whiskey or in the barrel during that time
Okay,
to the
so
whiskey?
so what happens is while while you put your whiskey in the barrel, you put it in what they call the rick house, which is just this big warehouse, and they're floor to ceiling, nothing but barrels.
They call them the rick house.
Yep, exactly. And so what happens is they heat up during the summer, so everything expands, and everything smells like whiskey because it's evaporating. Well, it's getting into the wood and it's coming out. So then when it gets cold, all of it contracts. So it goes from what was inside and pulled into the wood, comes now out. And that's what gives you all of the color and all of the flavor. So it all comes from that. So if you spend more time in the barrel, you hit a sweet spot. And my personal sweet spot is I like between 9 and 12 years. So think about that. Something that you put in a barrel today, you're not going to see for 12 years. And it's going to evaporate so much that you may lose half the barrel. So now you have a less supply.
Oh, wow.
And that's why you see, like, they talk about there's shortages of things. You know, there's shortages of Buffalo Trace. You can only get, Blanton's on a specific time. Pappy Van Winkle has been in a barrel for 23 years. So it goes from 53 gallons, it has maybe a quarter of what was supposed to be in there left. And
Wow.
so there isn't a lot of it.
Is there a standard rate of evaporation?
There is a math formula to it, but it really all depends on the region.
Okay.
Because the weather, it may be hot some years, so you're going to get a lot of evaporation. Some years it won't be.
Wow.
Yeah, so
I kind of picture that like it's in this process of just continuously like expanding and contracting, expanding and contracting, and when it contracts, it's like just infused with all this other flavor, and now it's like in this other form.
Yep.
It's like the universe, bro.
Exactly.
Expand and contract.
Exactly.
Everything does the same thing. That's wild.
It's all the same thing, man, and it all makes a cool product. So
wow,
yeah.
that's fascinating.
Yeah, so like literally, if you sit for 12 years, you may have half a barrel left.
So you have to plan for that loss.
Exactly. And so now, the distilleries of Kentucky are trying to keep up with the demand that's going to be in 5 to 7 years. Now is already gone. There's nothing that they can do about it. It's what's next.
Yeah.
So
now I would imagine by doing that, you are also changing the barrel itself with what flavor it would provide.
no, so every barrel is a little bit different, but it's all basically everything is done to be, it has to be charred American oak. It has to be that. Mm-hmm. And so every barrel that makes bourbon has to be that. Now you'll get people who will finish it. So like some of them will take a used barrel from like a port wine and they'll put their whiskey in that afterwards to impart a different flavor to it. But for the most part, everybody really kind of gets the same barrels. It just depends on what they use for their grain recipe, mm-hmm. what their rick house is like, where it's at, how much sun it sees. All of that plays into it.
I guess I'm assuming that barrels are just reused, are they?
No, you cannot use. They have to be new to be bourbon.
Really?
So what ends up,
okay.
Yeah, so they always have to be new, and they take them and they literally sit them on top of this fire pit, and it shoots flames up through them, and it sits for between 30 seconds and about 4 minutes, and that's what toasts the inside of it and burns the inside of it, and then they take and they wash them, and then they get filled up with whiskey.
What do they do with them when they're done?
They end up in Ireland and Scotland, and so Jameson is like the biggest buyer of American bourbon barrels because you may get Jameson whiskey that was aged in a Buffalo Trace barrel.
Really?
Yeah, because they don't have the standard that says it has to be new, so they all buy used from the United States.
So does that cause like a fluctuation or does it cause variance in the
Not
flavor
really,
profiles?
because they dump so much of it together. They're not pulling like one individual barrel out and then selling that individual barrel. Like they'll take thousands of barrels, dump them in together. They all get mixed together and then they all get put out.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Have you been there and seen this process?
In Ireland?
Yeah.
No.
I feel like you're a worldly man.
I would love to go do it, and as a matter of fact, my buddy Craig just got back from Ireland because of Bellator, and all I got all night long were drunk texts from Jameson because that boy got messed up, and it was funny to see. Oh,
were you jelly?
Absolutely, I was jealous. Like I was like, man, I hate you and I love you at the same time. Because
Craig's just out here living it up.
He
boy.
is, man.
Just living it up.
Traveling the world, drinking whiskey.
Just kicking ass and taking names, baby.
Absolutely.
Wow, dude, this is a very involved process.
Oh, it is completely. Yeah, I was really kind of surprised once I got like knee deep into it. When you really start, you decide that okay, well, I'm going to make a business out of this. It changes everything because a hobby to a business is a whole other animal.
And this is a well-regulated business. It's not. I mean, the barrier to entry has to be
astronomical.
Yeah, that was the word I wanted to say. Yeah,
Yeah.
it cannot be easy to
No.
get into this space.
And I was told whenever I first started that they were surprised that I had gotten as far as I did being a one-person shop because
Yeah.
this is just me.
This is you. This is
Like,
a labor of love.
it's myself, my kids, my girl, and like Matt Frazier from because he helps with everything. I mean, he is involved in the production of videos to like he designed the label. Like I had some ideas and he took it and he ran with this, and I mean he helps with all of like the marketing materials and everything. So there's really like in all told probably 5 of us who really do but I mean I funded everything. I 100% own all of it.
Man,
So.
dude.
Yeah.
You're all in.
Oh, like a big dog.
You're all in.
A lot. So.
Shit, dude. So when was your first job in a bar?
First job in a bar. I was a bouncer at Mississippi Nights back in
really?
the old days. Yeah, I was a bouncer for a lot of years actually. Did that and then moved to I did some bartending for a while, just around Laclede's Landing. I did like the Bernard Pub and places like that aren't around anymore. But
Yeah.
because I was a musician, I played music, and so I knew everybody in the business anyway down there. So that was kind of how I got involved in it.
You've been in the nightlife scene for a long time. my
I
friend.
have, man. Well, I'm old, man. So
How old are you?
see, nobody believes it when I tell them.
You're in your 40s.
I'm 48.
48?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck, dude. You're
Yeah.
almost 50?
Yeah, I'm almost 50.
No, you don't look like it at all. You're still very youthful in your spirit.
Yeah, nobody believes me. I've had to pop the driver's license on a couple of people.
You're 14 years older than me.
I know.
When's your birthday?
September 11th.
September?
Yeah.
Oh, September. So you just turned 48.
Yeah, I just turned. Yeah.
So you're closer to 13. I'll be 35 in December.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm old, man. But I've been around a long time, so.
Yeah, man. Shit, dude.
You know.
You've been in the space for a long time. Dude, you've had some lives.
I remember, kickboxing at the Viking and, old school stuff. So,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
What's it like being in these because you've essentially kind of like orbited kind of like the same spaces for a long time, and that like you're in the music space and obviously the bar scene, so kind of like that nightlife bar whiskey scene, and then like also compare that with like the fight scene. You've
Sure.
been in the fight scene for a long time. Like what's it like being in these scenes for so long and like now to kind of see it all kind of be married into this one venture?
Well, that's really cool because I got to kind of play it all together.
Yeah.
But man, I mean, I have been around for so long that you see, like there are the guys now that they consider like the seasoned veterans that, I remember guys 3 generations ago fighting.
Yeah.
I mean, like I remember when, Mike Rogers was fighting, that kind of stuff. Like I remember when Jesse Finney used to kickbox.
I remember Jesse fought on Shamrock.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
Shamrock, I'm sorry, Strike Force.
Oh yeah. Oh, but I mean, he fought like in the others, like the little shows too before that. I mean, So, but I mean, it's so weird. I remember like the original Matt Hughes, Carlos Newton days and that kind of stuff. So, because I mean, when you've been around that long, you see people come and go. And I mean, like I've seen guys, I remember, you fighting in Bellator. I remember when you fought, up in Kansas City for Shamrock in the time. Actually, I think I called that fight.
Yeah, you did for sure. Dude.
And yeah, so I mean, it's been so long that you really kind of it gets crazy with what and where you are.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen so many people come and go, and now they're like, I've seen people who like did it and then they like went away and got married and got businesses and blah 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 blah, and it's so weird.
It is weird.
It's very strange. Like even my daughter who's been around it. Both my kids have been around since they were like 8 and 5, and they're all like, man, it's really changed since. I'm like, yeah, well, you've been around forever, so
Long time, and now they're both working in the business.
Oh yeah, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, dude, you're a legit pillar of the MMA community, especially here in St. Louis.
Nah.
Yeah, come on now, dude.
Nah.
You've seen a lot. You've been there. You've done a little bit of fighting. I remember how long ago was it? Maybe a couple years ago. You just took a fight pretty randomly. Like
Yeah.
you didn't tell anybody. You just went and did it.
It was.
I guess that's probably been 4 years ago.
Yeah,
now,
about
at least 4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years ago was the last
Yeah.
time I did it, and I had done some kickboxing, I'd done some judo, I had done point fighting, I'd done all this kind of crap, but I wanted to finally do like one MMA fight, and I didn't want anyone to know it. Because I didn't want it to be like, oh, Jeremy Johnson from Shamrock is here, and blah 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 blah. Because like, you've seen it. We get a reputation, and it was like I just wanted to do it. I didn't want it to be like a big thing. and I had a blast. But it was so funny because, like, I'm in the back getting ready, and then one of the refs comes and goes, "What in the hell are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm the fourth fight on." They're like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's fine, all's good." And I'm like getting ready, and so you have they stage in the back, and then you go, and I'm walking, and all I hear is people going, "Is that Jeremy Johnson?" And I'm like, "God damn it, this is all I'm getting."
Can't escape it, buddy.
No, it was so weird. And by the time I got done, um, Rob Donaker, the matchmaker of Shamrock, had gotten like 3 phone calls that, Jeremy's fighting on this card in like Columbia, Missouri.
Everybody went and told Dad.
Oh yeah, they did. I figured it was better to ask for forgiveness and permission. There,
Always,
so, yeah,
bro.
So I just did it up, but it was great. I had fun. I did really well for being 45 against a 23-year-old who was ended up. I was told he was 0-0. Came out, he had like 7 fights.
Dude, you look great. For real.
So
I know 30-year-olds who look like shit.
I mean, you got to move. Everything's about movement, and I mean, that. You got to stay moving. You got to stay doing something, because the minute that like you stop, I always thought being a judo guy, like my shoulders hurt. My knees have been messed up. My body is all messed up. But like the minute that you stop, it's so much worse. It's so much worse. So, I'm ready to go back now. Like I had my COVID break, gained some COVID weight, and now it's like, all right, I'm ready to go train again.
Yeah, get moving again.
Exactly.
I'm sure this is keeping you busy. Does this make it difficult? Kind of like,
well,
this scene is not a healthy scene. It's late nights.
There's a lot, but I own a couple other businesses. I have a couple other ventures, and so I really try to find time for everything. You got to have time for your business. You got to have time for you. You got to have time for your family, because if you don't, you're missing out. And you don't want to ever, no matter how cool and how whatever this is, you don't want to ever miss out on the other stuff too. And so, I always like make sure that like my kids are involved in this with me. I'm teaching my daughter how to bartend now at our place. So, she's going to be jumping into that. My son runs the cameras for us now, and then he's learning to be a cut man with Craig, and he's doing great with it. So you got to keep that stuff, and if you can kind of keep them in the same vein with you, and you're always doing, it all kind of works to the same ending, it works out even better.
That's cool. You can keep them involved, because oftentimes kids usually want to find their own thing.
Right. I was very lucky that they had been around it for so long, and that's all that they ever knew. I mean, both of them, my daughter had been in judo. She's 21 now. She'd been in judo since she was 10. My son is 16. He was 5 when he started. And I mean, he's done that, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, boxing. He really branched. And, my daughter did mostly judo, but like they were always involved in MMA. And I mean, when I was doing my old show, that MMA show, like my daughter would go with me and be camera person. She would like go run the camera behind the scenes while I did all the interviews and stuff. And so it was always, I tried to keep them involved with me. So,
yeah.
And it really worked out, because, now, like I said, my daughter runs most of the social media on fight nights for the shows. My son, he is either, working cameras, or he's, working wrapping hands in the back now, because he's got that going. So, yeah, it's cool because they're always there with me now.
Yeah,
so,
proud dad for sure.
absolutely.
That's a proud dad moment.
Oh, yeah,
real,
completely.
Dude. Man, dude. How do you how do you keep everything straight? Like, how do you organize your life?
This one is probably the toughest. And actually, it was kind of weird because, so I've never been diagnosed with like ADHD, but everybody tells me, and like my girl's a therapist, and she's like, you have ADHD really bad. And I'm like, no, I don't. She's like, no, you do. You just focus really well as far as what you have to do. And I don't think if I would ever like actually go get it and get, medicine or whatever, I would screw everything up, because I don't have to sleep much. I sleep about 4 hours a night. My mind, and I'm not bragging, because I would love to do more, but I just can't.
Yeah.
But I always have, everything is a very set. So like at point A, I'm going to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I am going to do X, Y, and Z for one of my other businesses. And then I'm going to go do my next thing. And then at, 6 o'clock, I'm going to work on the whiskey and all of this. And I mean, it has to be very, very structured, because when I lose structure, I just kind of sit and stare, because there's so much going on.
Yeah.
So,
Do you have do you like write it out, or?
I do a lot in, I've tried everything. I mean, I've had like notebooks and blah, 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 but everything now just gets written in my iPad. Like you've seen at the fight nights.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have my big iPad that I carry with me everywhere.
Okay.
And that's kind of how I always have everything going.
That's your lifeline.
Yeah, exactly. So, and if I ever don't have it, I really get lost.
Okay.
So, because I have to schedule it, because if I start to like chase the shiny thing down the hole, I really get messed up. And last time I did that, I ended up buying into another business that didn't work, and I mean some other stuff. So like if I get too shiny, I gotta back off. So
gotta stay structured.
Yeah, exactly.
What's a day look like for you typically? I mean, I'm sure the details kind of vary, but
yeah, but I mean it's kind of the same. I'm always up by like 5:30 ish. I take my son to school, head to my office. I'm there for a while. I go run my meetings, do that kind of stuff. I try to do all of my phone calls between like 11:30 and like 2 for the day. Pick him up at school because I always try to be there for that. Head home. I try to have dinner with the family at like 5, and then it's like, all right, now I go do the rest of it. So like I'll go take care of like whiskey stuff that came through the day or any of that, and it just kind of varies on like when I've got to do like distributor talks and things like that. But and then like fight weeks change everything, and I get real weird during fight weeks. I get like real like I've been called a diva during fight week. I've been called all kinds of stuff, but it's just because it kind of changes my focus, because I want everything to be so good on fight night that I don't want anything else to get involved. So
you're very much tuned in.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I know whenever you're like a lot of the production relies on you and like you making decisions and kind of pointing people in places. So like I notice it's like you're on and like.
So did that surprise you when you started
people.
with me?
No, I don't think so, because as a fighter, I've seen you do that. Like whenever I was fighting, like I would see you. You're like, it's a little bit different because like now it's like I'm on the other side and we're like more partners.
Right.
Like so but before it was always like I could always tell you're very much in like work mode.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, all right, no, like I'm doing this, and this, and it's like we're kicking off the weigh-ins, and you're making sure everybody has their paperwork in and they went through the process, and then you're doing your interviews and you're telling people what to do tomorrow, and then when the next day comes, like obviously it's a lot different for fighters on fight day,
sure.
But obviously I didn't get to see all of like you kind of like directing people as a fighter, but now I get to see that. But I could kind of feel that anyway.
Yeah, it's always, a lot of people are just like, man, I can't believe, what you do throughout it. Because I mean, like, I work a lot doing, line producer roles as we're sitting.
Yeah, I don't think I knew it was that detailed, for sure.
And it really is. I mean, like, I'm calling when we're going to, when we go into the ring announcer, when we're going to go to commercials, when all of that is all done, through it. And so, yeah, we don't go until I say specific words and it's all worked out. And so, yeah, it's different, man.
Dude, you're fixing technical difficulties and everything, man. Like,
yeah, that one. But that's what you want, because you want the people who are watching it at the end, to have as good of an experience as they can. I mean, like, I can't help, internet drops and things like that, but like, I can fix sound on the run, and I can kind of tell like what's going on, because if I've got somebody watching it live, they'll tell me what's going back through it, and I always have somebody on the other end who will tell me what's happening, and I can kind of change and fix and like help our producer go from that end of things, and so there's a lot of it that goes into it, and I mean it's constant.
Has your role just kind of like grown into that, or
yeah? It wasn't. I never really. I mean, I started off as a cut man. I was the first cut man for Shamrock FC.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I was like, it was funny because one day they handed me a microphone and they were like, I need just somebody, a different voice to make announcements. I'm like, yeah, no problem. And because they knew I had done radio and stuff. And so I did my announcements, and then all of a sudden, like 2 weeks later, me and, Jesse are having lunch, and he was like, what do you, I'm like, well, I want to be Mike Goldberg. That was always what I wanted to be. I want to be Mike Goldberg. And so he gave me the shot, and I have literally, in the last, I think 8 years now, 8 years, I've never missed a show, like ever. It's only been me since then.
Yeah.
There was a guy who did 2 shows before me, and then it's only been me.
Really?
Yeah.
You just took complete ownership.
That's
your style. You take ownership.
If I'm going to do it, man, we're going to do it the whole way.
Mm-hmm.
And, over the time, it was like, all right, cool. And then, I wrote the beginnings and the shows. And, like, I write a show run of kind of how everything is going to go. And everything that we're going to talk about, I mean, because like you get sheets whenever you step in that's got all the information, all the fighters, and I've wrote all of that out already, and so it makes things much easier to just sit and go.
Yeah.
So, especially as long as they talk to us.
Dude, you got high output, bro.
You
High
think?
output. Yeah. Well, you said you only sleep 4 hours a night, so it sounds like you're going to bed at like midnight, 1 o'clock every fucking
About
night.
that, yeah.
Dude.
Oh yeah,
Dude.
and it just is what it is. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I go to bed when I'm tired and I get up when I'm not.
That's fair.
But it's about 5:30 in the morning every day. So, yeah, it works out. There are days I'll sleep in, but not a whole lot. So.
Have you had a mentor through any of this process?
Oh, you have to. You have to have mentors. In business and fighting and all of it, you got to have somebody who was in the place that you want to be, and then because you always want to surround yourself with where you aspire to be. I could sit and, hang out with my old friends from high school who still are all kind of in the same group. Or, I could hang out with guys who have already done what I wanted to do. And those guys are, moreover than not, the ones who will tell you and help you through it. And, I've been really lucky that I've been able to do that with other people now too, because you got to give back. But yeah, if you don't have a mentor in what you want to be and what you want to do and how, because nobody has all the answers, no matter what. I've done a ton of stuff. I don't have all the answers. I have to ask people all the time about stuff. And if you've got somebody behind you who really is very open to it, it changes your world. And I was lucky enough that I had two really, really big mentors in my life. And so they have helped me through business careers like I would have never thought at all. I mean, it completely changed everything for me. So, yeah, because, I grew up like super poor, didn't know jack squat from anything, never went to college. A lot of people don't know that one about me either. Yeah, I never really went to college. And I had somebody along the way and a drive that wouldn't quit. If you've got the drive, Andy Frisella at First Form, he talks about that all the time. If you've got the drive, it changes everything.
Yeah, man, you gotta do the work. You gotta be willing to do the work.
Well, you get it. Look how big this has grown for you.
Slowly but surely.
I'm telling you what, man. Imposed will, that's the best gi I've ever owned.
Thank you.
For real. Like,
dude, at this stage of the game, we make the best fucking gear on planet Earth.
Completely.
Like, I'm so sold on that, like convinced, because in the beginning when you're like when you're putting shit to market, like,
sure,
you don't really know necessarily how you're going to be received. I have high standards, and I was very meticulous throughout the entire process, and because everything is like cut and sew, and I chose the fabric, and we went through different suppliers. Like, it's a process, dude. It took me almost 2 years to make these shorts.
Oh,
it took a long time.
Well, I get it, because I have been lucky enough that I have had a lot of sponsors throughout my life and career in combat sports. And I'm telling you what, man, that gi is the best one I've ever gotten. And I bought it. I never asked. But it is literally out of all of I have had from Adidas to the big manufacturers up in Wisconsin and all these other guys out there. I've had them all. And I've always got them for free, and I'm like, I would buy this one over again because it's that good. So you should really be proud of that, because it's amazing that's one guy. Because I'm telling you, one guy can change the world and stuff.
You can do a lot, man. If you just put your fucking your heart and soul and everything into it.
Exactly.
It's a roller coaster.
Yeah, completely.
It's a roller coaster, dude. I wanted to ask you though, because we're talking about mentors, and I think that's one of the harder things to do, in that when you're a guy who's trying to like level up, and you want to be around those people who are doing the things that you're doing, you don't necessarily have a lot to offer. Like, maybe you have something to offer, but it's like, how did you seek those people out, or try to, or like what advice maybe that would you have to get around those people, or to get into those rooms? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It really came down to it. I had two really big mentors in business, and what it was for me, my first one, I started off that I was introduced to them because they had a computer problem, and I was a computer guy. That was my thing.
Okay.
I own a computer business. And so it was one of those that I had gotten asked to help him out with something.
So you were able to help him.
Well, I was able to help him, but then small talk happens when you're doing things, and he's just like, what are your thoughts and this and that, and we just kind of got talking, and then I was, kind of genuine about it, and I never boasted. I'm just, I'm just some schmuck from Grand City, Illinois. I tell that everybody now still. And it was just, he was like, well, have you ever thought about this and that? And I'm like, no, I really never did. He goes, well, come by and let's talk about this. And we ended up having lunch a couple of times. And next thing you know, he's like, well, I'll let you into my business to help me do this, because you have a pretty good computer background. And from him, we did that for years. And he ended up building one of the biggest billboard manufacturing companies in like the United States.
Oh, cool.
I mean, I want to say that they ended up selling out for hundreds of millions of dollars. And he introduced me to one of his partners in another venture, and that gentleman was like, when you talk of the upper echelons of things, he owned car dealerships, he owned a condo complex in Vail, Colorado, and he asked me about a computer question. I went and helped him, and he was like, I hear you're really trying to do some of, this type of things. And he's like, so let me show you kind of some of the things. And those people, they want to give back no matter how, how vilified rich people get. They really do.
Rich.
Yeah, exactly. Because, but I mean, it was one of those that I was there anytime and anywhere that they needed it. And that's where they saw the want and desire to help me.
Yeah.
Because there were times if his computer didn't work and he happened to be in Vail, Colorado, and he would call me up and go, my Wi-Fi doesn't work. I'm like, oh, we'll try this, this, and this. It doesn't work. He goes, okay, this isn't working. I'm going to send you a plane ticket. I need you to get on and come out and fix this. Okay.
Yeah.
And I would go to the airport.
You just offered help
Exactly.
and solutions without ever asking anything in return.
Right. I didn't want it. I didn't want anything. I mean, they paid me, of course. But
Right.
I didn't want it. But I learned so much more for him. And then it just became that, oh, well, let's go to this event. Let's go do this. And, then the next thing, you're at an event of the Missouri Athletic Club, and there's, guys rolling around in Lamborghinis and stuff. And that becomes a whole other world. And so once you get to that point, you're able to ascertain kind of from everybody. And it really kind of changes everything. If you have somebody that will just kind of take you under their wing. And so that's why, like, if I get people, because I have people ask me all the time, how do you get into broadcasting? How did you get into being a commentator? I've tried to help everybody. I don't have any, I'm not you might be coming after mine. I don't care. We're all here to do something. It's all fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
And so, I helped, a couple of guys into that world. I know that I've had few who would stop me and like, how did you make this? And I mean, I sat and at a bar in Kansas City one time with a gentleman, and I mean, we had a 2-hour conversation. And he still remembers it to this day because he actually made mention of it last time I saw him, because he's like, you were the only person who'd ever talked to me.
Really?
Said, well, yeah. He's like, you were the only person who would ever give me the time of day on it. And I'm like, well, because I see that there's enough for everybody.
There really is.
There's enough money. There is enough jobs. There is enough work. There's enough everything for everybody if you want to go get it.
I think the people at that reach a certain level of success and kind of operate at that higher level, they all have that understanding.
Yeah.
Which is why whenever they see somebody who's like ambitious and competent and is kind of on a path, like they'll reach down and like pull them up.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's usually like they want to help people, to your point, but it's like they want to help somebody who's also wanting to help themselves.
Right. If I give somebody advice and they look at me, okay, great, and don't use it, that's cool. I don't, that's fine. But it's the ones who are like, okay, and then they come back and they go, oh, yeah, that really worked out well. And I'm like, well, cool, let's do this and that. And then, the next thing, they're moving to that next level. And that's what it's really all about. It's not about dollars. It's not about how much whiskey you sold. It's not how many fights that you do a year. It's not about where they're at. It's how much you help people.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's really all about.
It really is. Helping people, solving problems. Like just how much value are you adding?
Exactly. And making good whiskey.
Dude, it's really all about relationships,
right?
It
is,
I
completely.
Mean, just if you do right by people, then I mean you just make those karmic deposits into the account, and it all comes back later.
Well, I mean, that was like, whenever you came into the fold of the potential of being my co-host, you know, I was like, man, that dude has got things going on. And I sat back, and I mean, because like I listened to your show, before I was ever on the first time, I listened to it. I was like, man, I really want to be on that. That's cool. And then whenever the clothing line came out, I'm like, man, this really works. And then I'm like, man, to hear you to do this now, it was like, man, we would be pretty good together. Because, I've been through some co-hosts and we had great times. I love every one of them that I've ever had. And so it was very cool to find another one because you got to gel.
Yeah.
And I think that we did really well with that. So
it's amazing how much you can accomplish, or like what can come of just doing. Because I mean, I don't have any background in broadcast or photography or like any of those things.
Right.
It's just like I was a guy who was a fighter, and I decided not to fight anymore. And I'm always very disciplined, and I work hard, and I have the mindset. I'm like, I'm just going to put this energy into this now. And then I started obviously it was more geared towards imposed will, but I also want to do the podcast, and I did the podcast, and I learned photography and stuff through that. And then I had Jesse on the podcast.
Yeah.
And then Jesse reached out to me to do photography for the Instagram. So I'm just walking around the shows with my phone taking pictures for Instagram. And then one day they were just like, hey, can you hop on?
I
think I did two fights.
You did 2 fights, and I remember it because we were having some issues, and there was a lot going on, and there was my co-host was going to corner and blah 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 blah. I'm like, go get Adam Meredith. And they looked at me like, go get Adam Meredith right now. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And Jesse was like, because we had talked about it. I'm like, this should be then. I'm like, let's do this. And it was kind of funny because you may not even know this. We had to sit down, and then you did it, and then we all went and talked about it.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And we talked about it, and I'm like, because I told Rashad, our producer, I'm like, go find the fights that Adam Meredith called. And I'm like, look, see where he did this? That's how it should be done. You need to talk like this. And I'm like, he got it, and he followed the directions, because I direct pretty well.
I just followed your lead.
Right. But that's what, my role is that, I'm going to kind of push it to a specific direction, but then you take it and then you tell everybody the what and the why. And it works out. That's because it's and for the guys who don't know at home, I mean, there's a lot of hand signals between us, and I mean, all this other stuff going on. And, because I'm doing one to you, then I'm doing one to the ring announcer. And I mean, and you got it, and you got it so quick that I'm like, man, this would work. And so, and I think our 1 year anniversary was just a couple days ago.
Oh, wow, dude.
It is, isn't it?
It's crazy.
Did you think it would last all this? I mean, a year that quick?
It just flew by. It's crazy. I actually had a conversation with a guy who was asking me how to get into commentary. And I kind of just explained to him, dude, I wish I had
a cool story.
I just wish I had a solid plan of action for you, but it was literally just me doing things and just putting myself in a position.
Being available. Being available is huge.
And being ready, you know what I mean? Because had I not already, well, one, obviously I had all the knowledge from fighting and all that shit, but had I not done podcasting and understood how to talk and do these things, it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, and that's what made it so good, is that you did have, but you had the drive, and that's big. If you've got the drive and the desire, man, you can do damn near anything in the world.
Really?
For real.
Yeah.
It's because I was on some terrestrial radio. I was on TV a long time ago. I did some things, but it was never my plan. This was never my plan. And it just kind of happened, right place, right time. And you got to be able to step up and take the opportunities when they come. Even if because if I would have been, man, I don't know if I really am ready to try. I'm like, let's do this. I couldn't have done anything more than tripped and fell and stumbled and burned. And I have my first fight that I ever called. I still have it. And I listened to myself then, and I'm like, oh my God, I was so bad. But, it takes time, and you get better as you go along. And it's amazing as long as you stay with it and keep the drive up. I will take drive over training any day of the week. I mean, for real. And in anything. If it's working for me in my computer business, if it's doing this, I will take drive and desire over base knowledge any day of the week. I can teach you how to do anything.
Yeah, you can learn.
You can learn. But, man, there is a thing about drive that just if it's not there, then it's never going to work.
Yeah, man. You just kind of just do without necessarily knowing what the next thing is. It's like your story. I mean, you've had a record deal, and you've done music, and you've done bartending, and you're helping people, pick their,
Yeah.
their list, and you're doing curation, like all these things, and you had a radio show and a podcast, and all of these life experiences of just doing is just all now accumulated
Yeah.
into this bottle here in
Right.
front of us. It's so crazy. Like you don't know what the next thing is
You never
necessarily
do.
going to be, but just do the thing in front of you.
Yeah. You never know what the next thing's going to be. I mean, like, what's your next plan? You have the podcast, you have the clothing line. What's next?
Man, I'm just so focused on Imposed Will and the clothing line. I'm trying to turn this thing into the biggest company. Like, dude, Jeremy, this is what I envision. I envision one day I'm gonna be sitting there in my Lambo or whatever, like sick ass car,
Yeah.
and I'm like, hey guys, I still have my t-shirt company. Like,
Absolutely.
yeah, dude, because I don't know, man. I want to like bring manufacturing to the United States or more manufacturing to the United States. I want to create jobs. I want to make this thing Nike.
I love that.
That's where I am headed. I don't know.
And it's all about drive. You may not make it to Nike, but if you make it 2 steps under, you killed it.
Who
You're
knows?
killing it now, and that's what it's all about, man. And that's kind of how I approach, the fight business. If I never leave doing, AAA regional MMA, I'm cool with it. I've had opportunities and stuff went wrong. I had an opportunity to interview with ESPN to do boxing for ESPN, and somehow the fates and the gods decided that I needed to fall off one of those damn scooters downtown. I screwed up my face and I couldn't go.
Oh wow.
And so I lost that opportunity. But, it's all for a reason. And if I never do it again, it's cool. I'm thrilled with what I've got to do. And I've got to do it for a lot of cool people. And, no matter what anybody says, because you'll always have haters in every bit of it, we've done a lot. And we've done some pretty cool stuff that not a lot of people in the world get to do. And that makes it so much more worth it.
Dude, Uppercut's kicking ass, man.
It is.
This is going to be a worldwide brand.
I'm hoping. I'm really hoping. I'm thrilled with the results we've had in less than a year. I'm thrilled with the perspectives of where we're going to go. We've got some cool new ideas coming. So, yeah, I'm really thrilled about it. So,
You ever see yourself just like slowing down and like just traveling all the time? Just like, oh, I'm not going to like focus on business. I'm just going to just travel.
I
Go
kind of
explore the world.
Kind of, but it's been more of I don't know if I would ever be like happy with that because I always have to be doing something. And it was bad enough that like I was out with Jim Range the other night, and Jim has done photography for anyone and everyone. I mean, Showtime, ESPN, blah 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 blah. And literally, he and I are sitting back talking about barbecue recipes because we both like to do barbecue and we like to smoke and blah 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 blah. And we were like, what if we started a restaurant? That came out of the blue.
Yeah.
I never thought about getting into the bar business again, and yet I got this opportunity. And next thing you know, I'm whipping up drinks in a speakeasy in downtown Granite City. And it's killing because it's just you never know where you're gonna go, and you got to be open to everything.
Yeah,
So,
you're just open to opportunity.
yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and and that kind of leads me like, so what do you want to do with like this whole broadcasting thing now? I mean, because the podcast is killing. I mean, you do some amazing stuff. I love listening to it because it's got very realness, and that's why I love doing this one. It's very real. I could sit here and I could put like the TV show voice on it. We could all do it like this, but I'm not going to do that. But it's so real that like what's the next thing you want to do with it?
I don't know, man. I get so much just value out of sitting down and having these conversations to where
because you've talked to some really cool people.
I have, dude. It's actually put a lot of perspective for me, like in the world and just people in general. Like, I think it's easy in the social media climate to put people on a pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
And after having conversations and meeting people who have large followings, it just completely puts things in perspective. Like, we're all just humans.
Yeah.
And that whole social media thing isn't important.
It doesn't matter how many Instagram followers,
No.
you have or how much Twitter, blah, blah, blah. I don't even know anymore what I've got because I do social media for like advertising. I'm not out there putting in, that I'm having, everybody who puts their life out there, it's it's not me.
It's a tool.
Exactly. It needs to be a tool like any other thing, man.
Yeah.
To me, Instagram is like a hammer.
Yeah.
You're here to build something with it, and that's what it's for.
Yeah. So like with the podcast, I just think about I just do it. I don't know, man. I don't really have any intentions other than just to keep doing it, like just to have the conversations and to meet the people. And I guess my whole thought is just like how who else can I talk to, or since I've been so focused on business, it hasn't been as big of a priority, but it's always been this thing that will always, because it's one of the more enrichful things that I do.
I bet I loved it. My old show was more of a news based kind of thing, but I love the interactions. I loved the what you get from people, because you get to have real interviews. They get to really be. I've had a few that were like different. You know what I mean? Like when I was on a show called Down Goes Frazier on ESPN 101 here, and we had everybody from like Colby Covington on, and then my old show, that MMA show, was we had Wonder Boy and all the other guys out there like that. I mean, and it was different, but some of them were kind of different, like off the air, and then when they got on the air, but most of them were really genuine. So yeah, you get a lot out of it.
It's interesting. I just like meeting people, and you get all the different personalities. It definitely makes just interactions in daily life easier.
Yeah,
because you kind of get a feel for the different communication styles and the different personalities, and just you kind of feel people. You can read them better,
and you realize that people are just people.
Yeah,
no matter what.
We're all just. I don't care how big your bank account is.
Nope, because your bank account doesn't mean anything at the end of
the
the day.
Like what have you done? Or I mean, it can. Your experiences can definitely make you more of an interesting person, but it doesn't necessarily make you a good person.
Exactly.
So
you
gotta kind of take that into account. I've met some rich people who are assholes, who are fake as hell.
100%.
Dude, I've met people, and I don't want to say. I've had a guy on the podcast who has well over 1 million followers, and I know all of those are fake.
Oh, wow.
All of them are fake.
Yeah.
Because I had another guy who's on the podcast, Andy Frisella, who has well over 1 million followers, and all of his are fucking real.
Oh, absolutely.
Dude, that dude posted a story, and I got like 10,000 fucking views on something in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It was insane,
oh,
dude.
Yeah.
It was and then this other guy posted some stuff, and like crickets, like nothing, like not even a blip.
Yeah.
So like that was a very eye-opening experience. It was just like, wait a second, something's not adding up. And it also jived with my gut feeling after the conversation. Like, it wasn't a good conversation. Like, it wasn't a good gut feeling. It wasn't.
Right.
And I'm just like, okay, now all this jives. And as a result, I now trust my gut more than it. Give me 2 seconds with you, and my gut will tell me what I need to know.
Yep.
Oftentimes.
Absolutely. You got to follow it, man, because it will. And I've got to interview Andy on a couple of things I did for Guns and Hoses once.
Okay.
He was on my podcast.
Yeah, because they're big.
Yeah, they're real big, and super genuine guy. And yeah, like you said, instantaneously you got 10,000 views on something that you would have never thought.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
dude.
it really was.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So, dude, how do you decompress?
That's a good question, because I don't think I do.
You don't?
I don't.
You're just wound up tight.
I am just wound up like a champ. But then all of a sudden I'll be like, you know what? I think I'm going to go someplace today. And so I will completely just be like, I'm done for the day. Let's go do this. And I mean, like, I have popped on and, been sitting around like all pissed off and, just, oh my God, everything's terrible and all that's going wrong. All right, well, let's go to Chicago. We'll go have dinner in Chicago. And so I'll go take off and go that. You just
get up and go.
You just got to go. You just got to get away from it. Let your mind go from it. I miss martial arts for that. I miss martial arts as my decompression. So I used to be a coach at the Hit Squad back in the day. And that was always my getaway. No matter what, like I could go to the gym, we could grapple, we could do all of this, and I would feel much better afterwards. And now, since I've kind of lost that, I'm really looking for the idea of another place to do that. I've been invited to a lot of gyms. I've went and done some sit-ins and things, and it's just kind of finding like my niche of people that I want to hang out with, and it just be like cool and chill and that kind of thing. So yeah, I need to get back to that, because that was my ultimate decompression.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
It sounds like the community piece of the gym is like
completely.
the biggest driver.
Oh yeah, completely. Because I mean, I could go anywhere and do what I did. We could spar, we can grapple, we can do all of that, but it's to find that group of people that make it worth it. We had some of the a blast back in the old days there, man. I mean, it was a lot of fun. And then whenever we brought over the guys from like CMMA, Jordan Dowdy and those guys, whenever they came over, I mean, it made it even better. And so, now it's just kind of where do I want to end up? So at some point in time it'll happen, but I got to make it another priority in life. So I got to make it another thing to go do that. So
yeah, martial arts is weird in that it's very it's like a phase for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So you'll kind of have like a class of people, and then people just start fading out. And
that's
then
the blue belt syndrome, right?
Yeah, and it's just like, and then it's like, oh, where'd everybody go?
Yeah. Well, I mean, because like I started doing karate stuff when I was like 12, 13, and I did that for a lot of years, and I did the point style tournaments, and then I did the full contact tournaments, and then I did the kickboxing type stuff, and then about 15 or so years ago I got into judo, and 15, 20 right now probably. Yeah. Jeez, I'm old.
You started old.
I did. I started doing a lot of it, but like it was kind of in and out, and then
late 20s, early 30s.
Like late 20s it was old.
Yeah, that's hard on your body to start a sport
completely
like that.
But I loved it, man. I mean, I loved the idea. I loved the contact of it. I had like wrestled in middle school, so I kind of got some of it, but it was more of that. It really kind of just became like, it wasn't the hoppy karate shit that I did, because I did Okinawan Shorin karate and then Kempo, and so I had done that for a long time, and judo was just that, and then to take that over, and then like the Brazilian jiu-jitsu, so like I would go do one, and then I would go do another class afterwards, and it was always fun because like I'd go put on a white belt and then toss somebody around for a while, and then it was fun. But
sandbagging.
I will always wear a white belt whenever I went into jiu-jitsu up until that time.
Them's the rules.
Exactly. So, but it was fun. So,
Man,
but I missed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, there's nothing like martial arts.
No, there isn't.
It's a very
because I mean, how long have you been around it?
Well, I actually did karate as a kid.
Okay.
But it wasn't like I probably did karate for 2, maybe 3 years, like through like elementary school, and then I mean, after elementary school, there wasn't any like martial arts. It was just like football and basketball. And then I got to high school, I started doing wrestling, which wrestling is, I mean, it's a combat sport. Really.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I mean, I guess you could maybe kind of count that. But, I mean, I started wrestling at, I guess I was 14 years old. So almost 20 years I've been wrestling.
Yeah.
And then from wrestling, after I stopped wrestling, because I was at Lindenwood, and we found out that my ex-wife, she was pregnant with my son, so it was like, all right, well, I started working full time, and I was still going to school, and then that's when I transitioned into fighting. So I was actually independent for like the first year. My first 4 fights, I was independent, and then I joined up with St. Charles and started doing jiu-jitsu, because like at that time, BJ Penn was the man,
right?
And everyone's like, "Oh, fucking black belt in like 3 years or 4 years, or how fucking fast you got it." And you need. So I'm like, "Oh, I need jiu-jitsu, of course. I need jiu-jitsu."
Right. Exactly.
And then that's when I saw it out, and I was on the wrestling team with Josh Sampo at Lindenwood, and he was at St. Charles, and that's kind of what took me there. And they were down the street from Lindenwood at the time.
Yeah. So I mean, but you got to have it.
Yeah, man. It's just that natural path, bro.
Do you miss fighting?
No.
Why?
Not at all. So
see, I hear varying when I ask people that. And did you notice I just kind of turned the table on you?
Yeah,
by
that's
the way?
all right. You told me you were going to do that.
I did. So
my ego misses it sometimes.
Okay.
There's been times where I was at the gym, and after just doing jiu-jitsu for 3 or 4 years, and then everybody just looks at you as like just a jiu-jitsu guy. It's like, wait a minute, motherfucker, like I'll still fuck you up.
Right. Exactly.
Like, don't look at me the wrong way. I had a really hard sparring session like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And that was good enough for me. I was just feeling real antsy, and I fucking had I went in there and I beat the shit out of somebody, but I did. I'm not going to say who it was. And I'm like, I'm good. And then now, yes. So I mean, I've done jiu-jitsu, And even then, I'm like, dude, it just doesn't do anything for me, dude.
I get you.
Like, I don't have anything to prove.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't really do a whole lot for my ego. And if anything, I'm only doing it for my ego. Like, it just feels good to be viewed as the man.
I
You
get
know what
that.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I don't miss it. I don't miss the
Yeah.
nerves. It doesn't do anything for me. It's like if I win, I'm glad I won, but I'm kind of fucked up in that I developed the mindset long ago in high school, like with football in particular, where if you win, you don't celebrate because that's what you're supposed to do. It's like if you do the things you're supposed to do, then this is the result that's supposed to happen. So
I
it's like
get
in
that.
football, they're like, when we score, we don't celebrate. You're supposed to expect that. And I just took that into everything.
I get you.
So if I win, I'm supposed to win. And if I lose, then I just fucking hate my life. And so there's no, like, it doesn't, I bet if you took a monitor and you monitored my emotional state
Yeah.
after a win, it wouldn't be very much of a spike.
Wow. All
Like,
right.
I'm sure there'd be a natural dopamine spike,
Well,
of course,
sure.
but it's not the same, dude. It just doesn't do it for me, man. And then I think about fighting in particular. I'm like, because we sit there and I watch fights.
And we literally, we have the best spot in the house.
We get blood on us.
I mean, complete. Oh yeah,
yeah,
constant,
dude,
right?
Honestly, man, I was watching that Josh Weston fight the last time. I'm like, nothing against Josh. If you're
No.
listening to this, Josh, nothing against you, buddy. I would beat the shit out of Josh Weston.
Fair.
No offense to Josh.
Okay.
I'm just faster. I'm longer.
Sure.
Well,
I mean,
I'm a little bit younger than he is.
I was gonna say Josh is like 40-ish.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I think he's only 3 or 4 years older than me. But I'm just a better athlete. I'm just being real. Nothing against Josh. I just feel confident in my
Sure.
abilities more so. And I just
Right.
watched him get beat up pretty bad by a guy who I've trained with.
Right.
Josh Augustine is a
Yeah.
lot smaller than Josh has gotten a lot bigger, let's say that. But he's still a smaller human naturally
Right.
than Josh Weston. So
Right.
with that being said, I think about it. I do sometimes, but I'm just like, man, I get in there. I'm like, oh, fuck, that check kick would hurt. Or, oh, fuck, I just kicked that elbow. That would hurt.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, juice isn't worth the squeeze, bro.
I get that. I do. I mean, like, I still love the because like I'm like you. Like right before COVID, I had one really good hard sparring kickboxing session, and it was flippin' fun because like the kid was like half my age. I was over at with Moses Flores boxing, and it was just. It is. There's nothing better, but man, I remember like after the fight, you don't feel good, like that
No,
dump, you just feel sick, and I had broke my foot, and I mean it was just dumb.
It's never worth it. Dude.
No, it isn't.
It's because you don't foresee the consequences.
Now you got the neat pour going on here, so it's still tasty, isn't it?
It's not bad.
Yeah,
It's not bad.
it's good stuff.
I like it better mixed.
Oh, absolutely.
I like everything better mixed. I'm not an alcohol guy, so that's why.
Well, that's fair.
But I can take it straight. This is good. It doesn't make me wince or anything. It's not.
For 90 proof whiskey, that's good that it doesn't make
This
you
is
wince.
good shit, man.
So.
Yeah, fantastic. Great job, dude. Great job, man.
I'm trying, man.
But yeah, dude, the juice just isn't worth the squeeze, man. Just for a little ego trip, maybe for a few $100, whatever the fuck you make.
Yeah, I wish people knew that, man. MMA guys don't make money until they hit the big time.
And even then, dude. I mean, the UFC roster is so deep.
Yeah.
They're putting on so many shows. They're putting shows at the UFC PI. They're not always at a necessarily big venue. You know what I'm saying? So these guys aren't making a lot of fucking money, dude.
No,
I mean,
people just don't get that,
you
man.
fuck around, you think you made $10,000. Cool, that's a great check. $20,000, great check. Hopefully you didn't get injured. You're still paying people. You still have to live off of that. How many more fights are you gonna get this year, bro?
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
okay, I mean, maybe you got some sponsorship money. I don't know,
Yeah.
but
I mean, think
what
about
happens
that.
if you get hurt your next camp? What happens if something falls?
Yeah.
Bro,
Exactly. It isn't like boxing, and people don't get that, man.
no.
Because boxing is a whole other animal for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what was kind of like the last straw with my last fight. Like, I just lost the fight, and I sat there and I was like, of course you could. I mean, emotions play into it. It's like you're down, but like I took a real honest assessment, and it was like my head is not into this. Like, I don't want it. Like,
And
you have
to be.
gotta
Your
want it.
headspace has to be there.
Yeah,
'Cause
dude.
I can see, like whenever we're at weigh-ins, and to me that is one of the bigger times when the fight is won and lost. You can see it in their face, and I can predict and it's not just our cards, it's all of them. You can predict pretty close by watching that person's face if they are there or if they are not.
Yeah.
I mean, big time.
Dude, and like I had great camps. Like weight cut was the best weight cut. I felt fantastic. Like physically, I was probably better than I ever felt my last couple fights. But I just like I think I was technically winning both of my fights, my last 2 fights that I lost, which was Zach Bucia. Like I had his back.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's just a gnarly vet, though, dude. Like he stayed calm, he had good positioning, he did what he did, and like when he took my back and flattened me out, he wasn't even throwing hard shots. He knew he won.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't trying to hurt me; he was just winning.
Right.
And then I lost against Shell Irwin.
Yeah.
And like I think I omoplata swept him. I was on top. He put me in a triangle. I got out of the triangle, and then he put me back in the triangle. Come on, bro. Like that's just bad jiu-jitsu on my part. Like,
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, kudos to you. Right, but it was like you weren't beating my A game by any stretch. So like when that happened, I'm just like, dude, I wasn't even choking. I just didn't want to be in the triangle anymore.
Right.
It was just an honest assessment. I was like, dude, I just don't want this anymore. And it's not. So I just took that same energy of where I'm training 2-3 times a day, 6-7 days a fucking week, just training all the time, and I just do this. I put that same energy into other things.
And it's amazing though that how much drive you got out of that. Like you learned the grind, you learned the work from martial arts that you take now, and that's what you throw into imposed will. I mean,
yeah, man,
it does
for sure.
Because it takes a special kind of crazy to train 6 days a week where people punch you in the face, every day, and then take that world and throw it into business. It changes you.
Yeah.
And I have loved that I had that experience as, younger, that it does. It pushes you. So,
yeah, it really does, dude.
yeah.
It really does. I think there's a lot of if people are smart, then they will take the structure that they're given early on in life from school. And if you apply that structure, and what I mean by this is whenever I was younger, all I did was it's like, all right, I'd wake up in the morning and I'd usually go train for like wrestling or football because we had like film or some sort of early morning workout or some shit. And then I would go to school. And then after school, I would go and I would practice again.
Sure.
I'd train again. And then I'd go home and do homework, sleep, whatever. Repeat the next day.
Yep.
All right, now I graduated high school, and then I just went to college. I was doing college, and I was wrestling, and then it's like, well, fuck, now I wasn't wrestling, so then I just, like, plugged in, like, working.
Right.
So I was, like, college, work, and then I added fighting. So I was, like, so it's, like, and then when I graduated school, it's like, all right, now I'm working full-time, and then after I get off work, now I'm just going to train. So it's, like, instead of school and wrestling practice, it became work and MMA training. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And then, so it's just like, if you just apply the structure, and then when I think about when I went to grad school, the output, just really, whether it's undergrad or high school or anything, just the output of like writing papers and writing articles and doing assignments, you just give yourself assignments in life. That's it.
Yeah.
That's how you run a business. You just
Completely.
You got assignments and deadlines, and you fucking do them.
Yeah, it completely. And like I said, I didn't really go to college.
Yeah.
And so, but I get the analogy because
See what I'm saying?
it's
You went to high school though.
Oh yeah, I mean I went to high school. I went to tech school like after school for 2 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean you get programmed that you're supposed to do a specific thing, and if you throw in the idea of how focused martial arts makes you, it really throws into you're going to keep that work ethic and that grind for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I see it in my kids all the time. I mean, my daughter's in college, my son's in high school, and they have the grind like they did whenever, she approaches like a college paper like when she was training for the Junior Olympics. Like for real. So, yeah, you got to keep that in your world if that was where you came from.
Yeah, like the process and it is the same essentially.
Absolutely.
Like the steps change, but it's like the methodology, you know what I'm saying? The idea behind it. So you didn't go to college, and you have managed to obviously educate yourself and build some shit. So how do you like to learn? Are you do you like to listen to books? Are you a reader, or have you just kind of soaked it up through doing and your conversations with your mentors? Or
I have always been a book guy, but I have a hard time with like staying focused of like reading a physical book. So I love the idea of books on tape
Yeah,
show how old I am.
I do that too. Books on tape.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, because that's what it really was back then. But no, I love the idea of audiobooks. And I don't listen to a lot of music. If I'm by myself, it's generally something that's like that.
Okay.
I just got done with The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Great one. That kind of stuff. And so it really, it at least pushes that. But I'm a very visual learner. I want to see it. I want to hold it. I want to feel it, and then show me, and then I'm good to go.
Got it.
Yeah.
So you learn by doing.
I have to do.
Yeah.
I wanted to. That's why whenever I started the whiskey, I mean, it was like I just went and bought everything. Like, it was, no one really should have ever done it the way that I did it. I mean, because like I spent a small fortune on just anything and everything, and I mean, I had Amazon boxes on my stoop that was just gigantic for all the stuff that I bought.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, let's see how all this works now. So yeah.
Well, dude, just fucking head first, dude.
Exactly.
That's how you do it. Do you like podcasts?
I love podcasts.
I'm pouring a drink. I see you looking.
Yeah, I love podcasts, but I like.
But you listen to them?
Oh, yeah.
I found once I started doing it, I don't listen as much. But now I had to break that habit and get back into them. But I listen in a different way now. It's like a trained ear.
You listen to see what can I take away from this.
Dude, I listen to Rogan's conversations sometimes, and I'm just like, how is he conducting the conversation? Oh, you went here with that. Oh, you asked that question.
Yep.
Oh, you didn't interrupt him here. Or you didn't say that. It's like, man, it's an art, man. Like, one of the things right now I'm working on is, because the natural tendency in conversation is just to be like, you'll be speaking for example, and I'll be like, yeah,
Right.
I'm not doing that as much. But that can feel awkward even for the listener, because they're like, well, why aren't they saying anything, or why aren't they giving me the whatever it is that they're looking for?
But that comes from time, and I used to have really bad crutch words, because that's what they call them in the business, when you say the thing that you don't know what else to go to. So you would say your crutch word, and mine was so bad in the beginning. But yeah, I take podcasting, especially like this, like conversational podcasts, not just the the news ones or the question and answer ones. I really kind of take that as the how and the why to see what else I can do. It's the same way that whenever like I watch a fight, I may not be like watching the fight to see the fight. I want to see how, Mauro Ranallo called that fight. I want to see how I can take something from that, or find some sort of value in, Michael Chavello calling something at one, because those guys are, the cream of the crop of it. And so you take so much from them. And I can see that when you do a podcast, it's conversational. It's a whole other world.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I've been thinking like that though for what we do too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I'm like, man, I need to start watching more fights so I can listen to Rogan talk on these fights, because you're Goldberg, I'm Rogan.
Yep.
I mean, Goldberg's not there anymore, but
I mean, that's what it is.
You're DC. I'm Rogan, sort of.
It's funny because like I've always had people who ask me like, well, how do I start? How do I start into this? I'm like, go watch a fight and turn off the audio and call it.
Yeah, sometimes
and you will find like you will either think you sound like a dipshit, or you will get it. Because but yeah, I mean, I would literally take Bellator fights, turn off the audio, and call the fight by myself, and I do both parts. And that was how I kind of got myself used to, because it's so weird that people who haven't done what we do, you're describing what's going on for someone who either has no idea of what's going on in the fight business, because they're just, this is cool, there's two people beating the crap out of each other.
Yeah.
Or B, they really know it. And so they're going to call you out and go, that's not what they were doing.
Yeah.
Or, if you miss a name or something like that. I mean, you're always going to get that. But it's one of those that it becomes a different example. It becomes a different animal whenever you're calling it for other people. Because if not, you're talking to yourself. I mean, really, it is.
Yeah.
So, and that becomes so weird because it's so unnatural.
Right. Yeah. But you can definitely get better at it.
Oh, always.
Definitely get better. Deja probably gets a little annoyed because, especially like right at the beginning where I was just practicing all the time at home. Like I would just be calling. I'm calling football. I'm calling things that. I'm just talking through it. I'm like, and I don't necessarily like put it on mute, because sometimes like I'll call it, and then if I hear them say the same thing that I'm saying, it's like, all right, I know I'm on the right path.
Yeah, I do know what you mean by that one, but yeah. but it does. It's so different. It's just so different.
Yeah.
And until you've really sat back and looked at it, I mean, it's there's so much going on, and you have to know how to win and change the action, because if like you're going through a point and then all of a sudden it completely goes the other direction,
So that point's done.
It's done. It's over with. It doesn't matter anyway. So we're gonna move on from that topic. Yeah. So it happens all the time.
Yeah, it's a fun time though.
Oh yeah,
It's a fun time, dude. We got the best seat in the house.
completely.
For sure, dude. Shamrock's doing some cool stuff, man.
Oh yeah,
Some cool stuff.
I mean, MMA period, as far as like the regional scene, is pretty decent right now. You know, I think there's a lack of fighters out there at the moment, but I think that there are still organizations who are doing great things. I mean, we do good stuff with Shamrock FC, but I mean, there's other ones out there who put on a great show. You know, there's all of them, and there's a lot of great fights out there, man. I love the fight game. So like, I love to sit back and watch. Like, I may not go to all of them because I mean, like, I've been called out, I'm not going to lie, for going to a few events. Like,
Really?
I can't believe they allowed you to be here, blah, 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 blah. You know what, man? That's not how it is.
It's not gang wars, dude.
Yeah, no matter how much they think that's how it is, it's not how it is.
Maybe it's like that for a few people.
It could be, but
Like in their own individual heads.
yeah, but like, you know, if I love going to fights, man. I love sitting in the crowd and just watching.
Yeah.
I love everything about it. And so, yeah, I mean, like, I will sit at home and, you know, I'll order the regional pay-per-view just so I can watch, you know, somebody that I know fight on that one. So, yeah, it's a good time, man.
And you're a boxing fan, too.
Oh,
so,
I've loved boxing for years. So.
Yeah, it's fun to watch.
Yeah,
a good boxer.
And being involved in the boxing game through being a cut man, is just, it's a whole other, the boxing world is a whole other animal. So, but, you know, I sat the other night and watched the Canelo Triple G fight again. You know, it was great. And it was just fun to sit back and just watch the fight and just not have to worry about anything else too. So
yeah, you're not working. You're
you're
just a fan.
And I'm a fan all the time, and I know you are too, because you got to be a fan to do this, no matter what.
It's a good time, man. It's interesting to think back of how many years I've just spent in this space.
Yeah.
How much of my time I've just dedicated to kind of sharpening my skills of just like messing up another human being.
Completely.
Like
For real.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
We train to hurt people.
No matter what, you know.
Yeah. Makes you calm though.
It does. It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is a very zen aspect to the martial arts world.
Yeah, man. I mean, if you're in a bar and some dude's mouthing off, you know, it's like, I'll just fucking hip toss you real fast.
Right, exactly.
We'll be done. We'll be done.
And it'll be over, and it'll be okay. You know,
you're not going to fall on your head. You're not going to die.
Yeah.
You're probably going to hurt your ass.
Yeah, and it'll be okay.
Your ego a little bit.
You'll learn, and that's all it is. So, but yeah.
Man, dude. Man. It's wild. It's really wild when you sit there and think about it all. And you've just been a part of it for all these years, man.
Long time, man. Long time. I mean, I remember, like I said, back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
So,
do you ever see yourself like not being in this space?
You know, there are times where I'm like, maybe I could. I always try to get to as far as I'm going to go in something. I want to be as best as I can be. And when I get to the point that I think that, okay, I've made it as far as I'm going to go, and I'm going to do as much as I have ever done, and it will never get any better or never get any more.
Yeah.
I'll go on to the next thing.
Okay.
And I don't see myself yet in this. I think that, you know, I have a few other things in the works with combat sports. You know, I have a couple of relatively big things coming up in the next 6 months that may pan out, and if it doesn't, you know, who knows? I may be like, all right, cool, I've done it, you know, I've lived it, now I'll go move on and go do something else, you know.
Sometimes I think about like what would it be to like get the call up, like what would be the call up for us, like if like the UFC called you or something. But the question is, would they got so many fighters coming out of the fucking, you know, like coming off contract that they're now rolling into analysts, kind of like how the NFL does and MLB does, where they're just going to start using their own people. Does the call up even happen anymore? You
know, I see the call up being more towards like, I could see the potential of maybe, you know, if I could end up in something like Bellator for like a you know, prelims or something like that, or, you know, there were for a while that they were doing multiples of, you know, they had Goldberg, they had, you know, Mauro Ranallo. They had a couple other guys who were all in that. I mean, there's always the backups. Sometimes somebody's going to get sick and it's going to fall out.
Yeah.
But like, I've called boxing before too, and so there's always been kind of the talk around that maybe I would go and do some boxing after this, or do it in tandem.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that if that happens, that would be great. I would love to go do it.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm happy with where I've made it in this genre of life. I'm happy with what I did. I'm happy with what I was able to help people to do. I mean, I thought it was pretty cool. Lance DeClue, who calls Nemesis here in St. Louis, made mention to me in a podcast once because, I kind of gave him the ideas of how to start. And, that kind of thing, I'm good with that.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I'm glad that he does it now. I think that's awesome. So.
With shows like like Eagle FC and like Anthony Pettis has his show now, you think we're going to see more fighters starting promotions and maybe those promotions making like a legitimate run? I mean, Eagle FC seems to be doing some shit.
Well, I mean, there are others, and I think that that's a distinct possibility. I can definitely see Anthony Pettis is pretty interesting. I know a couple people who work on that one. I know a guy who works on Eagle too. But I think that if that comes about, and they're fighting. They're honestly, they're fighting the AAA leagues like we are. They're fighting the same stuff that we're going to see. We're going to see the guys who are going to make it into, LFA to the UFC to Shamrock to Bellator or to whatever like that. We're seeing those come out of those organizations, and I think that there'll be more of that. And I think that if you and I were going to get the call up to something, I think it'd probably be something like that.
Like that?
Yeah.
I look at Eagle FC, and I almost look at them as getting people on the way down. Like they're getting people that are like leaving the UFC.
Well, but they all do that, man. I mean, you're always going to get the former UFC vet
because
that's the sell.
Yeah.
That's the sell.
Yeah.
And every organization wants that because, well, they got a UFC guy on the card.
Yeah.
And I know that you thought it was funny the first time I introduced you. I've introduced you as Bellator vet.
Yeah.
But you are.
Technically.
But that's true.
Yeah.
So never take that as the idea that, oh, well, all right, well, I was. No, you were. You got a check that came from Bellator MMA in your life.
Yeah.
You fought for Bellator. Don't ever take that slow. So
I think that Khabib's name and attachment to Eagle FC, I think it's a higher draw. For people to want to sign with them whenever they get cut from the UFC or they get cut from Bellator.
Yeah, then I think more like a PFL or something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and it's been weird to because I've worked for a couple of those organizations, like on the Cutman side on occasion, and yeah, it's a different animal. But I mean, it's strange to see like that that AAA versus like our AAA here in St. Louis, and because it's pretty close. I mean, we really do a lot of that kind of same stuff. So.
I'm sure the shows aren't really any different other than just the star power of who's attached to it.
Exactly. And they move. They go other places besides 3 venues or whatever. So
does the UFC move a lot? Aren't they just in Florida?
There is talk that there's now going to be like 6 different spots.
Oh, really? They need to fucking move. You see what's going on in Florida right now?
Yeah.
Am I an asshole because I don't feel bad for people in Florida?
Well, I mean, they most of them that live there live it. They're used to it.
You know what's happening.
Yeah, you know what's going to happen. You're going to have your flood or you're not, and
it's one of my top reasons I'll never live in Florida. I hate Florida, by the way.
Really?
You might like it. I tend not to talk shit on it because I know more people like it than don't, and it's not. Who wants to put negative? I don't want to interject negativity into the conversation.
I've been there.
It's just not my favorite place.
I've been there 4 times in my life, and it was one of them was Universal Studios and one of them was Disney World. So it doesn't really it wasn't like I could care either way.
Yeah. I don't hate it. It's just not my favorite place, but I just don't get the hype. And the thing is, the number one thing is you are going to get hit by a hurricane. Not if.
Yeah.
You will. Every year. You will get hit. Everybody knows it. So why are we acting surprised?
Yeah, 100%. I don't understand why, But I love the news coverage right now. The news coverage is amazing because these guys are out there and they're holding on to poles and they're swinging by, and then the next thing you know, a guy on a bike wearing a snorkel and a Speedo goes behind him, just having a great time.
Yeah, dude.
So yeah, it's all perspective.
It really is. Obviously, you don't want anybody to get hurt, but it's like, damn, dude, that place is wild.
It is.
Yeah, man. Well, Jeremy, guess how long we've been talking? No pauses either.
I mean, I wasn't even gonna bring that up, but that was pretty funny. The first one that we did of these, that
just went blank, bro.
Hey, it happens.
That was very early. I think that was with like the first 30 or 40 conversations.
I felt very I was very honored. Because I listened to it, and I'd scroll through social media, like, man, I hope he calls me sometime. I'm like, am I cool enough to be on the show yet? I really did.
Oh, I did.
So
the thing is, I usually have a list of people I'm going to get to. It's just whether or not,
yeah,
when I will get to you. Dude, of course, you're moving a shaker, bro. Come on now.
Nah.
So what's next? What's going on? How can people follow, check you out? If they want to keep up.
You can follow Uppercut Whiskey, of course, on all the social platforms. It's just Uppercut Whiskey. We have a ton going on with it. We're in, like I said, 60 stores in Missouri, 20 stores in Illinois. We have 3 more states that are going to probably happen before the end of the year. Fight-wise, you can always follow me at Jeremy J MMA on Instagram, and you can see pictures of Adam and I in cool suits,
yes,
and that kind of stuff.
Suits.
So exactly.
Is this available online yet? I know you're working on that.
So online, yes and no.
Okay.
So it is. There are a couple of online retailers who carry it who have bricks and mortar stores. In order for us to sell online, we really have to land in New York. And so that is one of the next 3 that we're going to. Once that happens, then we can, because New York has a very interesting law with the way that it works, we'll be able to then put it online and sell out of New York.
National distribution.
So even if you would order it in like Cape Girardeau, Missouri, it's going to ship from New York.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, well,
so
that's interesting.
Yeah, the whole thing is so convoluted, but yeah, Jeremy J MMA on Instagram, and MMA Jeremy on everything else is my handle.
Beautiful.
It is.
My man, dude. Thank you again. Cheers. All right, everybody. I'll talk to you later. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. I know I did. As always, if you're getting value, just do me a favor, tell a friend, bring us a new friend for the next episode. I will be eternally grateful if you do. That's all I have, though. Just keep being rad humans. We'll be back very soon with another conversation. I'll catch you next time. Love ya. Bye. Mwah.